April, which launched back in late 2022 as a canonical part of the hit animated series. And so, to discuss this game and other things, joining us today is none other than Ruby showrunner KerryShawcross, and of course, my usual co host, WayForward head of Biz Dev and Publishing, Adam Tierney. Thank you so much for being here, guys.
Hello, hello. Let's see if my mic works.
Yeah,
Intro
you sound great. Do I sound okay?
Yep, coming through loud and clear.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course, thanks for having me. Any chance to spend time with y'all, I will take. And I'm also immediately shooken by the fact that this game came out in 2022. Oh god, what is time?
Yeah. Before we go any further, though, I do want to mention to everyone that we will be taking questions later on. We've already received quite a few. But yeah, if you have anything you want to ask Kerry or ask about Ruby Arafel, just add us right here on Twitter, and we will try to get to all of those later in the show. But for now, Adam, Kerry, I will let you take it from here.
Sure thing. So yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, it's rare that we have a special guest, especially some one that's so well known and has so many fans out there, and as you could tell from the way that Kerry talked at the beginning, we had a really good time working on this game together. I think everybody on the WayForward side was just so jazzed to work with you and your team, and I would assume that we talked on a lot of calls. I know that you guys were very enthusiastic as well. So before I do anything else, just thank you so much for being a part of us on that project. It was really fun.
Oh, I mean, I look, I know that this is like the expected thing to say, but genuinely, I mean, like, we were so excited when we found out we're gonna be working with y'all. I mean, we're huge fans of WayForward games. I've played Shantae for years and a lot of others, and just being able to work with y'all was a dream come true. So genuinely same right back. And the whole process was great. I was you never know what it's like to finally get to work with a person or a company that you've admired for so long. Turns out it can be great, because all of y'all have just been we're just amazing through the whole process.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I have definitely what do they say? They say, like, don't meet your heroes. I've definitely met some people in the industry where it's like, oh, that's kind of a bummer that the person's sort of not as not what I expected them to be. But I mean, I think at WayForward we try to be as nice and excitable and collaborative as possible, and that's totally the same vibe that we got from you and your crew as well. So to start things off, just for anybody who's less than familiar with you and your series, why don't you talk a little bit about Ruby and your involvement in it?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, Ruby's been around since I guess you can say 2012, yeah, because the red trailer. But it's an American anime web series about four, at least at the beginning, huntresses in training that are going to academy, learning to fight these monsters called Grimm, and huge focus on crazy action, comedy, really special weapons, just fun things, and we've been going for, like I said, since 2012, 2013, done 9 volumes seasons of the show, multiple games including Arafel. We have 2 movies that we did with Warner Brothers that were crossovers with Justice League, and a bunch of others, and an animated spin-off series that's from Japan. There's a lot. Dang.
And comic books and toys and everything.
Actually, novels, toys, everything. It's been a wild ride.
And a hell of a lot of pop figures.
A lot of pop figures. We find one of my dreams from the beginning was to get Nendoroids. I'll just be honest. I think I've said this before, but that was huge for me. I'm a big Nendoroid guy, and Thing was great too. Don't get me wrong, but
we can
they're just cute.
We can have all our various Shantae figures hang out with all of the Ruby figures.
Yeah, 100%. And then I was there from the beginning. I helped co-create the show. Monty Ohm created it. Miles and I helped from the beginning and helped develop it. I've written for every season. I've co-directed the first two, and then unfortunately when Monty passed away, I took over as director and showrunner, and have been doing that since, and just kind of keeping things moving. And I definitely know that Monty would have been very excited about us working with WayForward.
Oh, thank
just
you.
a good just good collab all around. And
So-
it really did feel collaborative. I know you mentioned that earlier, but like I know you have a ton of questions, but I just what to add to what you're going to say too is or what you said earlier is that it really was a great collaborative process, and between everyone on y'all's team, you and Rob and Matt, like everybody, Dale, I see you in here too, and like I could tell everybody really cared about this feeling correct and feeling like a Ruby thing, and not just a licensed game or something like
right.
that. This was a collaboration, I think, through and through.
Yeah, definitely for us, the Twitter's freaking out on me. We love collaboration, and especially when we can work very closely. We worked on the first Adventure Time game directly with Pendleton Ward, and that was great. Whenever we can work directly with the creators and the people working on the source material, it's always better, and we love tapping into that. You mentioned one of my questions. I'll jump ahead to this, but since you brought it up, what is a showrunner? Because a showrunner role it's unique. They don't quite have that in movies. It's not exactly the same as just a writer or a director. But what is that role, and what does it involve you doing specifically on Ruby?
That's a good question. A lot of times it's also referred to as an executive producer. I think that's what you see a lot in TV shows. Side note, my parents wanted to listen to this, but navigating into a Twitter space was probably not the best for them.
I'll break in really quick. And this is just for everybody listening too. Our goal with this is always to turn it into a legit podcast, to actually start going in the feeds, Apple feeds, to take all the back episodes. So we've been putting them all together, making some header art. We got Megan McDuffie to do some musical intros and stuff like that. So hopefully very soon we'll have all of our back episodes, including this one, on everywhere you can get podcasts as well.
That's awesome. Well, since I didn't know, I was recording on my end, and I just realized that I had my mic muted in Twitter Spaces and not on my recording, and then had the loudest burp ever. So I'm sorry to my parents who just heard a terrible belch. Sorry, to answer your actual question. So showrunner, it's kind of a vague term, and I feel like it depends on the franchise and the medium. For me specifically, it is kind of meant just being the Ruby guy. So a couple of that things means when we are talking about new collab potentials, stuff like that, obviously it's not my decision to make, but they would definitely talk with me to find out, do I think this is a good fit? And obviously be closely involved with it. I'm kind of guiding the story and making sure that we're heading in the right direction. I am kind of like creatively in charge of the production. So there's obviously, producers, supervisors that are running the day to day, but a lot of decisions ultimately come back to, do we have enough time to do this? If we can't do this, how do we pivot? And that's where I come in. And then also doing some writing and directing on my own, for those as well. So it's kind of a catch-all term, but it basically means the one that makes creative decisions and at least has some insight into what's going on the business end to help us not make bad decisions.
That's really interesting. We kind of have that a little bit informally at WayForward. For example, like with River City Girls, that's not a brand I created. That, Kunio-kun has been around for 35 years, but our iteration of it, I've written all the scripts, and I directed the first game and some of the stuff, but then Bannon's been directing it recently. But I'm sort of the go-to for, like, hey, if somebody's going to do an art book, or if somebody's going to do a figure or something like that, I'm sort of the authority on that. I think we kind of informally call it like a brand manager. But
Yeah.
it sounds like that kind of is a lot of what you do in addition to the actual day-to-day production on
To
scripts and shows, right?
to a degree, yeah. So I mean, when Rooster Teeth was around, we had a brand manager, for Ruby and the other animated projects, Christine Brent, who handled a little bit more of like the nitty gritty, like actually reviewing every single thing. So I was a little bit more at a high level, but yes, I mean, like it to your point, I feel like it's kind of important that uh, at least at a large level, stuff is funneled through one person or at least a small group of people, just so that there's somebody who's keeping all of that in mind. I definitely could not have done you know all of that, so I'm so glad that we had Christine and Jeff Yetter and Eddie, Aaron, like so many people help out. It's just it in the end, whenever a hard decision has to be made, usually everybody turns to me and says, "What do you
You're
think?"
kind
And I'm
of the
like, "Oh,
creative authority. At the end of the day, you know
yeah."
how the girls act, you know what they would say, you know the how the plot should go, right?
Yes, and the
Yeah.
best part of my job is when other people know it just as well as me, and I can just be like, "Yep, do it, you do what you're saying," basically.
That's really cool. So, taking a step back from the show, I want to ask something what we ask any of our non-way forward employee guests on.
Mhm.
What's your video game origin story? What systems or
Mm.
consoles or specific games were impactful on you growing up? And do you have an overall favorite game of all time?
Ooh, this is a great question. So I think the first game that I ever really played, like that wasn't like a some type of kids game, was Commander Keen. Um, way back in the day. My brother's a good bit older than me, so he kind of introduced me to some stuff like that.
Yeah, I definitely remember
My
that one.
Oh yeah, it's still so good. And then my very first console, and like big memories from that are the original PlayStation and playing Spyro and Crash. My we had we had a good setup. We would play Spyro. I would do a bunch of the running around stuff. If it got hard, I would hand the controller to my dad, and then my mom would point out like, "Oh, there's a gem back there. We had to look at that." So a lot of fond memories there. Um, and then of course, it eventually ended up with most consoles as I grew up, or if I didn't have one, a friend did. Um, I think I gotta say, I think the like GameCube, Game Boy Advance era is one of my favorites. Mainly just because it was weird.
Yes.
Um, like I felt like everybody was just like, let's just try some things. Um, Favorite game of all time is tough.
Or just any of them that spring to mind.
Sure, sure. I mean, Hollow Knight's pretty big up there for me. Um, yeah, Hollow Knight's pretty big up there for me. I mean, I will always have a fondness. I'm looking around my office right now of all of like the memorabilia I have. And I think Hollow Knight is winning right now. Yeah.
It's pretty great.
Um,
Do you have the fan gamer physical edition? I loved how that
I
came out with a little brooch pin.
Oh yeah, I do. Oh, I do. Yeah. No, I love that. And then uh currently though, another game that recently that I really really loved was Eastward.
I haven't
Um
played that yet. I the art pixel art is phenomenal though. I need to
it
try that one.
it's beautiful. It's a it's very earthboundy with like the combat of like a 2D Zelda. I really really enjoyed it. That was another one that recently hit pretty well. I'm actually it's fine. I'm playing through Earthbound right now. I've never beaten it, so I'm getting my way through it. But I'm playing with like the original guide that came with it, which is like themed like a travel brochure. It's very fun. It's a very interesting way to play the game.
Yeah, that thing's just creative top to bottom. Yeah, I need to
Yeah,
check that out. I remember seeing the Eastward stuff when one of the lead artists was initially posting like early development stuff, but I never
yeah,
actually played the final version.
highly recommend.
Um, uh, as far as like Ruby, the part of the identity of the show is it has such a deep dive, such a strong component of both heavy narrative and character development, but then also those very Monty Ohm style like fight
Hmm.
sequences. What is that like? Is that, I would imagine it's fun, but what is it like working on a series where it's so all in on both the drama on one side and then the hand to hand combat on the other?
It's I mean, it's a fun challenge. I think one of the things I like about production in general, and obviously most of my experience is with Ruby, is you know coming into work every day and not really knowing what the day is going to hold. And I think that there's a lot of fun in that challenge. So having it's interesting. Yeah, you go to sit down and write, and sometimes it's okay. I need to, how do we make this funny, or how do we make this more serious, or yeah, I need to draw out a map of this area that they're going to be fighting in, and think about uh how they're going to get from A to B, and use the environment. And it's I would imagine it's probably, I mean, I guess, so I've worked on another show called Camp that is, you know, there's obviously some nice dramatic moments in it, but it's mostly comedy. And, it is a little bit easier to sit down and kind of have that focus. But I think it's more fun. And I think it's more fun for the audience too. I think it's nice to break things up. And, if things are only funny or only serious or only action constantly, it can get a little tiring. So I think it's nice to have that balance.
And I mean, as WayForward, we specialize in action games, but we've definitely over the past decade gotten heavier and heavier on our narrative, especially active narrative, like during the gameplay.
Absolutely, yeah.
I imagine that that's got to be really fun as you're working on plotting the episodes out and scripting them, uh, doing that juxtaposition, like playing with the idea of like characters are fighting, but then maybe somebody's dealing with some, humorous little like dramatic thing, and they're supposed to be
Yeah, can we
focused.
can we can we reference that thing that happened an
Exactly. They're
episode
supposed to be
ago
focusing
that
on punching, but they're talking about this thing. Yeah, it seems like a really, like, it's very good mining material for the juxtaposition between chattiness and fighting.
yeah, absolutely. I think a big part of that too is, the kind of wide variety of characters and personalities that the show has. Then you especially early on, for example, like, Jean is this goofball, doesn't know what he's doing, everything around him is kind of comedic. So then the first time he actually gets really serious, it kind of means more. um or the first time he does well in action, it means a little bit more because you've seen this other side of him. So it's yeah, always having more to pull from is great. And I mean, honestly, at least for me personally, that's kind of how life is. I know, not sure everybody's like this, but when you're going through a difficult time, and you're around people you're close with, someone's probably going to crack a joke. And I feel like that just being able to weave back and forth makes things just feel a little bit more natural, a little bit more real.
What's it like working on, a series? And this is, I'm sure this is something that built up over time, where people have such a deep connection to the characters. That's something that I, again, kind of going back to River City Girls, at least for the games I've been involved with, that's the first time where I saw like, oh wow, people are getting really emotional about these characters. They really want them to be happy. They really care about, the plot points, as opposed to something where it's more, superficial and just kind of like, fun and light. But obviously, especially after how long you guys have been out and all the twists and turns, you have fans that are just really, really connected to those characters. What's that like? And does that affect your approach? Make it easier or harder or anything as you're continuing the story with them?
I apologize. Could you repeat the first part of that? My browser refreshed and I missed. I heard the
Oh,
good
sure.
laugh
Yeah, I'll
joke,
give you the
but
short version. So basically, like, the Ruby fans are so emotionally connected to those characters and story, and that's built up more and more over years. Does that make it harder or easier? Like having such a very passionate, dedicated fan base. What is that like creating story and plot in that sort of an ecosystem with the fans?
I think overall, I would say net positive. Um, it's it of course it's just amazing that people care that much. I mean, I think that's in any you know creative endeavor. It's nice just to know that people that you've affected people. Usually for me, that's my goal. Is it's less about like I want to make somebody laugh or cry. It's just like I just want the idea that through this like fictional medium we can affect people. I think is really interesting. um it's great in so many ways. It's also very scary when people have expectations of where they think things are going to go, or where they want to go, or we've made a decision. You know, we know that a fan favorite character is not going to make it. You know, and just knowing that we are going to, you know, in the same way that we want to affect people, unfortunately some people are going to be hurt by that, and you know, we hope that it's always for the kind of greater good of the show and the story. But you know, knowing that some reactions are coming can sometimes be stressful. But in the same way, though, it is something we think about a lot. Of, you know, okay, how are fans going to react to this? Not necessarily that that's going to change what we're doing, but potentially how we're presenting it, or just kind of uh just keeping it in mind as we go into it. You know, I think it's I always the height, there's a thing in our community called the hiatus, which is, you know, the time between seasons. And you know, I definitely feel as it goes on, I can see people, you know, more and more theories come out, and I feel like that's something I've actually now experienced on my end a bit more in the recent just time period with Severance. I won't say any spoilers, but you know, I was watching that week to week as it was coming out, and
Oh yeah,
just seeing
me too.
so many, yeah, great show, and seeing so many theories, and you know, I feel like I know exactly how those writers are feeling. Of, you know, they see something and they're like, oh God, everybody thinks this is what's going to happen. How are they going to feel when that's not what happens? You know, and it can be a little scary, a little intimidating, but
I think the series that always springs to mind in terms of like viewer expectation too is something like Lost, because people were so consumed by
mhm.
that, and then the way that they wrapped certain things up was just such a head scratcher that, you know, I agree with you. I think people behind Severance, maybe, you know, with Mike White on White Lotus, like any of those like die hard, like day by day, week by week shows, they've got to be considering that, like how the audience is going to react to like every twist and turn for sure at this point.
Yeah, and maybe the thing that they're considering is how do we subvert those expectations? You know, but ultimately, I also think it's important that you stick to your story and the thing you want to tell. Not to say that you can't learn, especially, you know, as you know, I'm sure, much like we do with every after every season of the show, after every game y'all make, you know, you look at what the feedback was from the audience, and you at least take that into consideration when you're making your next game. It doesn't mean that you're going to do what people suggested, but the fact that they suggested it, you know, is worth noting.
Absolutely. Yeah. We always look at that. I think it's a mix, like you said. I think for myself, you know, when I've been directing games, you do take that into consideration, but also over time, I think as I've matured and a lot of the other directors we have, you get more confident in sticking to your vision. Like, because ultimately you and you're the person on the show, you have to be the arbiter of the creative vision of it. And if
Mhm.
you're shaky on that, then it's not gonna have a north star, so to speak. Um,
Yeah,
in terms of just to switch to kind of a more kind of wonky production question, it's
sure.
unique in that the show is, I think a lot of people would call it anime loosely, but it's an entirely CG show. At least the primary series. I know there have been 2D iterations as well.
Mhm, mhm.
What is that like? What are the pros and cons of doing a show that's polygonal with boned characters as opposed to traditional 2D animation?
Well, you know, in general, the the area that it helps the most is reusability. You know, when we create an asset, you know, like you know, a new costume for Ruby, you know, we model it, we get it rigged, and then once that asset is created, we can use it as much as we want. You know, we'll obviously make changes as we go, as you know, animators get their hands on it and want to add more controls and that kind of stuff. But you know, we kind of have this asset now, and it means that, you know, an artist doesn't have to redraw the same thing over and over again. Um, and we have, you know, we build a set, and now we have that set. We have that coffee mug. We can put that coffee mug in another thing, and it just reduces time of reuse. I think that's the biggest part of 3D that's helpful is reuse. The downside to that, of course, is if we're getting into a scene and we decide that the room should have a window here instead of in this other place. If it was only in one shot, in 2D, you could just draw a window in a different spot and it wouldn't matter. In 3D, that's a couple hours of work potentially. So there's kind of a give and take. But for longer running series, 3D for that reason can be good.
Yeah, it's the same with us on games. I think most people think of WayForward for 2D, but we actually are about 50-50 split on our games between 3D and 2D. And definitely, if you have something you're going to be using long term and you need to adjust it, it's great. Like I have a protagonist and I want to change outfits or I want to do minor adjustments. But for one-off stuff, definitely sometimes 2D is easier. Like I would imagine that if you guys have a sequence and it's like, oh, I want one of the characters to have an allergic reaction and bloat up and turn green and get spores on their face, it's like, oh god, that's gonna take forever in 3D, right?
Yeah, I mean, when stuff like that happens, we have to weigh, do we have time to do it at all, or then can we find a method that we can do it, maybe in compositing and effects versus actually going and affecting the model, because that's the other side of it, is if everybody's using the same Blake model, right? If we make a change on it, it then affects every other Blake in all the scenes. And then all it takes is, whoops, that change was on by default accidentally. And now we've got a bunch of renders where, Blake has had an allergic reaction or something, So it's, it makes it, we just have to be a little bit more thoughtful in planning out. Not that 2D doesn't do that. It's just, it was funny. We had Connor Pickens was our lead editor for a while, and then he became an episodic director. And he's not alone in this, but just using this as an example is, he has a very big live action background. And, in live action, you get the shot set up and, what, that cup is like oddly on the edge of frame. Let's just take the cup out of frame, right? Easy, done. You just move the cup in person, you're fine. The way our sets are set up by default, if that cup needs to be moved, okay, well, somebody's got to go in and adjust the file. It's not going to take very long, but somebody has to go make it so that cup is movable now. And so little things like that are things you don't always consider, but is why we have, as we learned a lot more, because when we started, we really did not know what we were doing. We figured out ways to better check that kind of stuff, to better predict what we would need to do. Having a dedicated layout team just to go in and look at shots ahead of time and work with the asset team. We figured out a pretty good flow.
Yeah, we do a little. Most of games when we work in 3D, it is by nature it has to be completely dynamic. Like can kind of work from at least any angle within it. But yeah, I always heard anecdotally, and I think you kind of touched on this briefly with like Pixar and stuff, because of the time it takes to render out the final frames, and because of how time consuming that is, you're making decisions between what is done correctly or thoroughly versus what is like a baked in light or what is like a 2D card or stuff like that sometimes as well, right?
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, we and it also allows us to, when you say the correct way, the other way to move that cup would be to go ahead and just render everything out on different layers, and then composite, we could just move the cup over, and it would probably look fine as long as it didn't distort. It shouldn't have distorted from the camera too much.
Exactly.
And we also that is another benefit that or I shouldn't say benefit, but another difference is y'all are working this like dynamic. It's everybody's like seeing the game in engine constantly. We especially in the later seasons, we're doing a mix of kind of live, I don't know, for better term, shadows and baked in ones as well. We had basically what we called like beauty passes for the shadows that would make the faces and certain parts of the bodies look better. But then we would also use the more dynamic lighting and could kind of mix between the two and pick what we wanted, which allows us to get a little bit more honed in look, but definitely takes more time. It's interesting. The first 3 volumes of Ruby, which are all done in Poser, a different software, were actually much more in engine rendered. So it was actually closer to game rendering. And then we
Interesting.
moved to Maya and Max to kind of give us some more options.
I would imagine that at the beginning of the series, also, you're not outputting everything in 4K or 8K or something like that, right?
No. I mean, in the first couple seasons, we were the ground shadow was a texture that just floated below the character.
Right. We have a lot of questions, so I'll wrap this up. But
Oh, sure.
just to hop before we do, I have two more questions for you. Let's shift over to the whole reason we're talking, which is Ruby Arrowfell. So, for people who don't know, Ruby Arrowfell, developed by WayForward and published by us, and it's on most platforms, is a co-development with Rooster Teeth and with Kerry and all the people over there. What was your involvement in? I mean, I know, but I'm asking for the audience.
Sure.
What was your involvement in helping that with that game story, and was that similar to previous Ruby games, or was there anything different about this production?
Yeah. I mean, I would say that we were pretty heavily involved in a lot of aspects of this game. Probably closest would just be the one that we made internally, but I mean, even then, we were still very heavily involved with this one. I mean, we talked very early on about types of games, like what we would be interested in, what y'all were interested in, what we thought would be good for the market. Figuring out exactly when in our story it would take place, because we thought it would be great for this to be a canonical game, which it is. And then we worked a lot with Rob and the rest of the team over there to work on the story. A lot of times in cases like collabs like these, um, everybody's doing a little bit of writing. It was on y'all's end to really like come up with the story and the new characters. But then of course, like myself, Eddie, Miles, like would get in there and give feedback and adjust lines and kind of give it honestly the same type of pass that we would give our own writing. Whenever we write our own scripts, everybody else looks at it and kind of makes suggestions. So it was very similar to our own writing process in that regard. And then I was also a big part of the voice direction for the game. And then on top of all that, we also did all of the in-game like cinematic cutscenes.
Those were fantastic. I was so happy that we got you guys to contribute with those.
It was super fun to do, yeah, and I directed those, and it was a lot of fun just getting to, kind of come in and out on these kind of vignette points, because obviously you play the game, go into this cutscene, and then come back out. So it was interesting. It was something I hadn't done before, and but it was a ton of fun to get to do, and kind of it was fun to get to see especially the new characters that we all kind of created together.
And that's
actually not just the game, but also in the series
and
kind of art style too.
That's a good. That actually leads right into my last question, which is, for us, this was really unique. We rarely get to do this, where we're tapping into an existing IP, and there's a lot of new canonical development within our game that's like official stuff. And in this, it was so awesome that that you and Rob and everybody got to create a whole new team of huntresses with Team Briar. What was that like? What do you like? How do you see those characters, and what had you ever done anything like that in the previous games, or is this the first time that there's been like such a substantial game origin for the IP?
No, this is definitely the most like new canon I think we've had in a game. We introduced a character in Grim Eclipse, but no, I mean this whole subplot and everything I think was just amazing, and like I said, Rob did the initial pass of Team Briar, but we all worked together on the kind of their personalities and then the art style, and how they would be kind of navigating through this world. And I mean I think they fit right in, and I mean I that really brings me back to what I said at the beginning, is like it just shows how much y'all care, is that they fit right in, and they just immediately feel like a part of the world. And I know y'all, you say you don't do this often with other IPs, but in my opinion, I think we should be doing this stuff. It's fun, it's like, why? I think a lot of there's obviously caveats to this, but why create a huge world that has so much potential if you don't let people, play with your toy box,
Exactly.
Especially people that you respect and that is going to take good care of it. So, um, and I think it's more rewarding. I mean, like we could have, this game. I don't think we ever talked about this as an option, but I'm just saying technically this could have just been like a retelling of the first volume or something like that, and that would have been fun. But I think it's way more interesting to get, new characters, new stories, see more parts of the world that we, just don't have time to show in the story and in the main show and learn more about the world. So I don't know. It felt right and like I said, felt very natural.
Yeah, it's definitely the preference for us whenever we can do that. Whenever, and it's not just about like, oh, hey, we got to put our stamp on the lore. I think it gets people more excited about the collaboration because, like you mentioned, we do a lot of games, and still happily so, where it's like we're just adapting this story, we're just adapting this chapter, we're just fitting in, in these like few little parameters. But definitely so much more exciting for the fans and the team to work on something this collaborative and this expansive as we did with Ruby Arrowfell. I know we have a lot of questions this time, so let's go ahead and hop over to those, and I'll hand it back to the virtual mic to my co-host Chris Hoffman.
All right, yeah, we do have quite a few questions. Hopefully we can get through as many as possible before Kerry has to go. I won't take any longer. I'll just get right into it then. The first one is from @Turnabout who asks, who is your go-to character to play in Arrowfell, Kerry?
Ooh, that's tough. It's between Ruby and Yang. There's just, I'm not allowed to have favorites, but just gameplay wise, I love both of their styles. I'm a big dasher, so being able to do that was always fun.
All right, that's fair. Yeah, they're all fun to play. It's hard to pick.
Oh
hard to pick
yeah,
a favorite.
let me be clear. I love all of it. It's just I think I just found myself kind of like in between stuff on them a little bit more.
Yeah, for myself, it was always between Ruby and Blake.
Yeah.
Next one is from @Rusty_CPT. What happens to Team Briar post game?
Oh man, all right. I saw this one earlier and I was really thinking about it, and the real canonical answer is they all died. I'm just kidding. I think that's TBD. Mainly because we want to leave the doors open. I will say non-canonically that they are very talented, and I have a feeling that they would be able to get to safety just fine. And we find out. I don't want to give any spoilers for the game, but ultimately they are not evil. So I would love to see them again. Is what I want to say there.
Yep, that would be great. Fingers crossed to see them again.
Yeah.
Next one is from @ThatKaitoDan, who asks, was there any consideration of including Jean, Nora, Ren, and Oscar either as playable characters or NPCs?
I mean, in general, yeah, and if y'all want to weigh in on this too, I mean, I think it's always the more the merrier. A big part of it is just figuring out, what makes the most sense. What do we have the bandwidth for? Unfortunately, we live in a society that is ruled by money. But I mean, certainly something would have liked to do. And although I'm not a part of any business talks, I mean, certainly from my end, there's no reason to say not to.
Yeah,
I don't know if y'all want to speak on
no, I was going to say
from making those decisions.
Yeah, from the development side, I mean, it's tough to have multiple substantial characters that are like playables or bosses or whatever. And this was a brand we're going into where we knew at minimum we were going to have 4 very fully developed characters. So I wasn't probably involved in the character discussion, so I don't have specific insight, but I would guess that if any characters are omitted that people would have loved to have seen, it's purely just because 4 playable characters, swapping between the characters, we're already that's already a pretty robust production in terms of what we're able to accomplish within, like you said, the limited time and budget.
Yeah, well, I've got to imagine too. I mean, it's one thing to obviously, to model the characters, right? To figure out their move set, to get voice lines for them, but then, all of the puzzles that you made for the four girls, does that work for Team Juniper?
Exactly.
Is there now a way to get soft locked, or do you have to change things? So I think and not that, the question asker saying this, but I think it's a lot harder than it might seem. So hopefully down the
Yep.
line, or it may be in a new game.
All right, good answer. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much we can say, but yes, there was absolutely consideration of having them in there in some way, shape, or form. Maybe we can go into
Yes.
more details someday.
Yeah.
The next one is from at Aroncon515. Is there any way to get uploads of the animated cutscenes on the Ruby YouTube channel?
That is a great question for, unfortunately, probably y'all or Viz.
Yeah, we could talk about it. I mean, from the WayForward perspective, so we are not the IP holder. We had a license agreement for this, but we're the developer digital publisher. We love stuff like that, and we have uploaded whenever we have like really fancy schmancy sequences. We love putting that stuff up, putting up music videos. So I mean, yeah, reach out, like ask Viz, ask anybody involved. But definitely from the WayForward side, we'd love to see that stuff.
I'm making a note. I'm putting it in my to-do list. Ask about cutscenes.
Yeah, when we first put the game out, we asked media and influencers like, "Hey, please don't just flip a movie of all the cutscenes." But now that we're more than 2 years out, I think maybe we can look into doing something.
Right, because yeah, there's spoiling and then there's reliving, right?
Exactly.
And I feel like we've hit the point where it could be fun to relive those moments. Yeah.
Okay, next one is from at Equestron. Any chance of a sequel of sorts in the works?
I mean, I can't speak about anything in the works, but I mean, as I said at the beginning, I loved every second working with y'all. So, I would be there in the drop of a hat.
Yeah,
I don't know what that phrase really means.
Nope, same thing. We would drop all of our hats too. So, absolute. Like speaking as head of publishing at WayForward, in a heartbeat, we would work on another sequel, especially working with you guys and your crew. I know it's a annoying answer to always hear, but it is just vote with your wallets. Like we make games that we're excited about, but we are allowed to make games because they're successful. So that's why River City Girls 1 was very successful. That's why we've done a sequel and a spin-off and DLC. So more people buy our games, and not even just at release. Like we could have a groundswell of suddenly attachment on a game, years after release. All of that helps the likelihood that we can do more content, more sequels and DLC down the line.
100%, yeah, and we would absolutely love to.
Yep, all very true. Next one is from at Phantom OP99. Along with co-op, were there any other gameplay mechanics or sections that didn't make the cut that you would have liked to have included in the final release?
That's a good question. Nothing is jumping out to me. I mean, we and again, I don't want to say anything I shouldn't. I mean, obviously we talked about co-op. I'm really happy with how the game turned out, and in some ways I almost feel like the co-op version is a different game. Like I not that this one couldn't be co-op. It's just that it almost feels like a different experience between that co-op and be able to switch between yourself yourself playing the four. I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Yeah, I don't remember anything. I'm sure if we got Rob on here, he would probably remember some specific stuff. But yeah, definitely, like you mentioned, as far as like there is the low level of like making something active multiplayer where it's system resources or online or whatever, but definitely for a game like this, which is an action puzzle platformer, that makes it a lot more difficult because the whole guts of the game is changing between the four girls based on their abilities. As soon as you can do that, but you can have two instances of them at the same time, throw out all your puzzles like that. Like you said, that's a very different game at that point.
Yeah, which I would be interested in seeing one day, but I still think, yeah, I think the game that we have, I think I am very
Yeah.
happy with, and I think was ultimately the right decision too.
It'd be a good evolution for a sequel. So yeah,
It sure
again,
would.
guys, pick up the game, tell people about the game. If we can ever make a sequel, I think that's absolutely one of the first things we would look into is adding multiplayer to it.
Yeah, please. I mean, yeah, I'm sure if you're here, there's a very good chance you have played it. But if you want to, give a gift to a friend, or if you've heard of it, but you just never picked it up, it would mean a lot to us because a lot of time, care, and effort went into it, and um, I think I know I'll say it again. I know it's worth it.
Yeah, and seeing it with co-op would be interesting indeed. Next one is from at YT Game News. Yeah, speaking of multiplayer Ruby, can we maybe get a Ruby fighting game?
Uh, I mean, once again, not sorry to sound like a broken record, but yeah, would love to do that. In the meantime, speaking of just other partners that we've worked with, even on this game, you could go play Arc System Works Blaze Blue Cross Tag Battle, which features many Ruby characters. Um, I would love to do a Ruby. Uh, you know, I was about to say I would love to do a Ruby only fighting game. That's not entirely true. I love the fact that Cross Tag Battle has multiple uh franchises in it. I just love to have more characters, so I mean, I think that that's something that, you know again, in the future we'd be super open to. And of course I would not say no to a Ruby only fighting game. But I also really love, I think, the uh I like the balance we've had so far of games that have action in them and also have a little bit more of a story to it. So I think we've had a good give and take so far, and I'm excited to see what we're able to do in the future.
Yeah, maybe we can. I know we've talked about it, but yeah, maybe we can someday have the girls visit River City as well. I think that'd be a cool
That would
crossover.
be
That'd be
I
great.
I think that style would be really great for the girls. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Next one comes from at Murapai 1995. Will we see more of Team Breyer in the main show? And when will the game's music be back? I assume that means on streaming services or something like that.
Yeah. For the music, I'm sorry, I have no idea. But that is a great thing for in a non-harassing way for you to ask Viz, and mostly just to let them know that you're interested in it. I think that's a big part of it is, like Adam mentioned before, speaking with your wallet, and then when you can't, speaking with your mouth, I guess, again, in a non-harassing way. And when it comes to Team Breyer, again, no comment in like a fun way. Who knows? I guess just to say is, again, I think they're very great characters,
Let let
and
let
whether we see
let's
them.
take a,
Oh,
a,
go
a
ahead.
more positive perspective. So to clarify, Team
Oh,
Breyer.
I'm so sorry.
So, oh no, I was just going to say like maybe a more satisfying answer that we can give since it's the no comment.
Yes, yes.
Is you guys, to clarify, you guys own Team Breyer, and so just to clarify for everybody, you could do Team Breyer stuff if you wanted to in other mediums, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, yeah. When I say no comment, I just mean in a fun, I don't want to spoil
Oh
things
yeah,
kind of
yeah. No,
way.
no. I was just trying to kind
Yes,
of like dig for
it's a very
a
good
little
point.
more info. So I think if there
Yes,
was any consideration from anybody of like, oh, they can't do them because they're in a video game, that shouldn't be a limiter. And obviously, any way forward involvement, we would love to see them in as many things as possible. So
100%. Yeah, I think they're really great characters, and I would genuinely love to see them in future volumes and future games or anything like that. I mean, I feel like there's a lot more to their story that we could tell.
Okay, moving on to the next one. It is from at Paco Sucks 69. If
All
you
right,
were
what
to
did he
make,
do?
I don't know, poor Paco. You shouldn't have done that though. If you were to make another Ruby game, would it be like the first few, or will we be getting something based on something different? For example, a full game using Ruby but plays like Fire Emblem, and that's followed up by at Master, who asks, Ruby open world?
Mm. Uh, I mean, that's a great question. I think on a personal level, I'm very open. I love. I said this kind of similarly earlier. Is I love how many types of Ruby games there've been so far. Um, we've had action adventure, we've had yeah, puzzle platformer action, we've had fighting games, we've had card games, we've had mobile games. I mean, there's been a lot. So as far as I'm concerned, the more the merrier when it comes to that. um Usually, uh, as an example, and correct me if I'm misremembering any of this, guys, but I mean, we usually the partner kind of comes first in my head for that. I think when we started talking to y'all, we didn't know exactly what the game was going to be
Correct.
yet. We just knew we wanted to make something together and talked about it a lot and kind of settled on this is the vision we want to take for this game. um and I think that also speaks to the variety of games that y'all make. Obviously, when we talked to Arc Systems Works, we knew we were getting the fighting games at that point. So I think any game is on the table. I think it just depends on kind of what we're in the mood for at the time, and what feels right. um yeah, I'd personally love to do a kind of bigger open world game at some point. I think that'd be very fun.
All right, that'd be awesome. Next one is from at Mike Marty Levy 1, who asks, did any of the Aerofel characters have illusions in mind when they were being made akin to most other Ruby characters?
Yeah, I again, this is one I saw earlier. I'm trying to remember. My memory is so bad. I wonder if I can go find some old notes. Because again, Rob did the first pass of these. I don't think they just inherently did. Not every Ruby character does. Um, I think that they're all themed together very well and have this kind of like nature aesthetic. I think they're also the most tatted team we have, which is awesome. Um, but I think a little less so in this case. But I'm gonna go look at some old emails, and if I find something, I'll let you know.
Yeah, a lot of stuff when you're coming up with new characters, a lot of it is looking for like stressor points, right? Like you wouldn't have like
Yeah,
four characters that are all cheerful and get along perfectly. You look for ways to make them clash or make them conflict because it's more interesting, right?
yeah, and I feel like a lot of Team Briar came from where they are in the world of Ruby, and what's happening during that time period. And a little bit of what we kind of wanted the story to be, and you know whole, so to speak, of like what types of characters we needed. Uh yeah, I feel like and y'all can probably speak to this too. Whenever you're creating a new character, there's never one reason you're creating a character, or never one kind of method for it. I feel like sometimes they're born out of necessity, and sometimes they were there the whole time and you just didn't realize it, and then all of a sudden you went, oh no, this is a character that's been there forever.
All right, thank you for that answer too. The next one comes from at breadcrumbs1783, who says, hey there, if I can ask, along with this game, what other side projects are considered canon, as well as what exactly canon adjacent means?
Good question. Good question. I'm trying to figure out how I can dodge this question. No. um okay. If you ever see anything else that I've said before, go with that and not what I'm about to say. I mean, Grim Eclipse was canon. uh Arrowfell's canon. When we say canon adjacent, what we mean is, like, so for example, the Justice League movies are canon adjacent. What that means is we have like a rough idea of like when they like could have taken place potentially. The characters are like definitely still the characters. As an example, uh you can see where the Justice League movies fit into the story of Ruby, right? In that kind of like, you know, volume 8, 9 area. So they could be canon. However, in the main series, we're not going to be like, hey, remember that time we met Superman? So it's almost more of like a one-way canon. Just in that, you know, they're the same characters that you know. They're not going to do things you don't expect. Things are going to work like you would expect them to work, you know, in terms of like the rules of the show. But we're probably just not going to reference it in the main series. Whereas, you know, for Arrowfell, we knew, you know, we not that we just knew, but we like, you know, called out exactly when this was happening in it. And yeah, like we said, like Team Briar could absolutely just show up in the main series one day. It's the reason we say that and use that a lot is just to give us a little bit more freedom to do more interesting things without having to always work that back into the main show, if we think that it's not possible or maybe like the best fit. Hopefully that answers your question and doesn't seem like I'm just dodging stuff.
And I believe we did a Valentine's image at one point where Ruby and Masako from River City were hanging out eating chocolate. So that's canonical now. That's shared universe now, right?
I mean, I'm not gonna say no. I'm not gonna say no one bit. Ruby loves chocolate. She loves cookies. How can she not?
This is all true. All sounds totally reasonable. Next one is from @FaithAluosta, who asks, "Hi, I was wondering what happened to the people living in the small villages in Solitas that we see in the game, like Essen Village and Dormir Village. Did portals open for them too at the end of Volume 8?"
Yeah, I would, you know, they again, because this is canon, I mean, you know, they knew where these towns were at, and if they were in danger, they had the ability to get out of there, you know. I'll be honest, every single person, every single village, I mean, maybe somebody tripped and fell and didn't make it, I don't know, but you know, they were definitely thought of, and if they were in danger, they had a chance to get out of there. So don't worry.
All right, good, because everyone's worried about Mouse Girl. Let me make sure Mouse Girl got out fine.
Oh,
I'm sorry, forget
I have
Mouse
something
Girl.
to tell you after this. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Okay, on to the next one then. It is from @Akumuokoku1. Will Team Ruby ever be able to ride a train normally?
Hey, so first off, great pronunciation on that. Um, and two, why? It's boring. You know, if you ride a train, it's nice and it's relaxing. If you're watching somebody ride a train, no, I think trains are cursed in this show. Maybe one day we'll do like a more traditional credits thing, and it'll just be them riding in a train forever. I mean, you could, you know, if you're a fan, if you want to go out there, you could just cut together all of the footage of them riding normally in a train and cut out all of the bad stuff, and make like the train cut. I won't stop you.
All right, I will be looking forward to that.
Yeah.
The next one is from @SonicGreenTeam, who asks perhaps the most important question so far: who's the most ticklish in Team Ruby?
Oh, interesting. Hmm. And obviously, we're talking about the older versions of all of them, and not the youngest versions of all of them, to make this slightly less weird. I probably Blake. I've never thought about though before. I've never thought about that, and I never will again. This was it.
All right, fair answer. Okay, next one from @TionB.
I do not want to see that in the wiki, in the fan wiki. I'm so sorry to interrupt. Do not put that in the fan wiki.
You're just asking for it to be in the wiki now. It's probably already in there by now.
No.
Arrowfell introduced us to Lieutenant Colonel Harper. Does this mean the Atlas military has traditional ranks like Admiral, Commander, Captain, etc.? And if so, how come we never see them in the show outside of Ironwood being a general?
Yeah, they do. I mean, we for the Atlas military, there's kind of this like blend of you know, huntsmen, huntresses, and that military. The honest answer is, you know, kind of like we were talking about before, is every new character is a good amount of work. I mean, I think one thing that, going back to that 3D question is, eh, not the exact same amount, right? But 70 to 80% of the amount of work that goes into making like an extra in the show is the same as Ruby. The main characters get a little bit more extra work done, but it's a lot of work just to make an individual background character. So, because of that, we kind of have to limit the scope of kind of secondary characters a little bit more. Uh, and honestly, I mean, there, like I said, there are ranks, but we just in the show have just dealt with fewer characters. That's the honest answer.
All right. Thanks for the explanation there. Now it is already 2 o'clock. We have tons of questions. So I'd love to keep going. Just want to make sure that you still are able to continue on, Kerry.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, cool. Then I'll move on to the next one. We have another one from at Sonic Team Green who asks, "Will you bring back Amity Arena?" I assume they mean the game.
That is a unfortunately question not for me. That is another one where, in a non-harassing way, I think the more you can let Viz know that's something that you're interested in, the better. Uh, yeah, I promise if I held the key to any of these things, everything would be around all the time. But uh, like I said, we always have to just kind of balance what makes the most sense at the time.
All right, that is fair. So on to the next one then from at Strider Reborn, who asks, "Why wasn't there DLC?" And then at Dilo Renzo Shelb asks, "Was there ever talk about DLC for outfits, like having the girls in their minstrel or beacon outfits?"
I think
Sure.
I remember we probably would have talked about that with Jeff at the beginning of development. He was my biz dev counterpart on the Rooster Teeth
Yeah.
side. So absolutely, we're every time we do a game, with few exceptions, like unless we see a game where it's like, hey, this is a one and done and we never want to revisit it. Usually during the biz dev conversations, we're talking about the possibility of sequels and DLC and extra content and stuff like that. So I would imagine that what you see in the game is kind of what we mentioned before, like that's what was feasible in the time and the budget possible. But again, go back to the cheesy answer: vote with your wallets. If suddenly there's a bunch of interest in this game, or it's suddenly much more of a hit than it currently is, absolutely, we'll look at costumes, DLC, sequels, any of that stuff as
Yeah.
much as we and the IP folks want to.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm presuming a few things here, but I mean, it would be much easier to add a costume for Team Ruby than it would be to add Team Juniper into the game. So I mean,
Correct.
that is
Yes.
yeah. So that's something that is more attainable, but yeah, like you said, it really is. Yeah, just the more people that buy it, the more we could do with it. Because I think everybody involved is still very happy with it and happy with the partnership. So it's just more about what makes the most sense.
All right, that is very true. Next one is from at Chris Applesauce, who asks, "Who approached who with the idea of making the game? How was the creative process from both sides?"
So this was funny. We
Yeah.
get approached about games, and we do all kinds of connections. We just left from WayForward GDC a few weeks ago, where we talked with game publishers and other game developers and IP holders and like everybody you can imagine. And we're pursuing like a lot of the IPs that were our favorites growing up or that we really want to make games of. This was a very unique one in that I have a LinkedIn profile, and Jeff Yetter at Rooster Teeth just cold slid into my LinkedIn DMs and said, "Hey, I work over here. You guys should work with us on a Ruby game." And we started chatting, and then we got Arc System Works involved because we had worked with them, and so had you guys, and it all kind of just came together. But yeah, it would just happen. I don't know what originated the desire to have a connection, or if there was some kind of initiative on your end. But for us, it was just Jeff reached out to us and said, "Hey, let's work on a game together," and it came from that.
Yeah, I mean, it's been so many years now, but I mean, I am almost positive. I mean, between Jeff, Miles, and myself, and we're all fans of WayForward. So I mean, I'm 99% sure what happened is we were sitting down thinking who we like to work with, and we said WayForward, and Jeff said, "Okay, let me try," and everything just worked out. And I remember, Jeff and I came out to meet y'all for lunch, and we kind of talked through, and it just seemed like a really good fit.
All
Was there
right,
two
cool.
parts to that question? I can't remember. I'm sorry.
I think so. Yeah.
I mean, how was the creative process from both sides? I think you answered that, and I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
Adam answered the first one about who approached who.
Great.
So yeah.
Was the answer to that? The creative process was great.
Okay, splendid. We have one here from at Poorly Drawn Shoe, and you kind of covered this already, talking about the PS1 and Commander Keen and Spyro and Crash. But they asked, what was your most played game / console growing up?
Ooh. Probably. I would say in two phases of my life. One was Halo 2. Just like we did LAN parties constantly, online, just like a ton of Halo 2. And then before that, probably Ocarina of Time. I would just run around, just all of Hyrule. Like I played the game obviously, but I would also just run around and do stuff. And future me is turned out very happy that Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom came out, because that allowed me to do what I always wanted to do in Ocarina of Time, or what I did but wanted more from. It's got to be. I mean, obviously I played a ton of Pokemon, but it's got to be. Oh, you know what? A lot of Melee, a lot of Smash Melee, actually.
Okay.
Actually, now that I think about it, it might be that. I'm going through like my life right now, and I'm like, actually, that one's up there too. So there's a few games in there, kind of a wide variety.
Yeah, all good choices though. Next one is from at Saxm13. If you could experience a volume of Ruby in any visual style ever, which style would you want to see? Example: Arcane style, Spider-Verse style, Ghibli style, Simpson style, etc.
That's a good question. I think to kind of like answer your question by not answering it, I think I would almost rather less see like an entire volume, and more of like a anthology. What was it? Star Wars Visions? Was that like or like the Animatrix? Yeah, like I'd love to
Yeah,
see multiple studios and styles do kind of like some smaller vignettes, just to get even more variety out of it. All of the styles you mentioned, I mean, I think are gorgeous and beautiful, and would love to see. But I mean, I'm I kind of gave the greedy answer, I guess, which is a little bit of everything, but in a different way.
Including like the Aardman animation claymation version.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, we can do stop. We actually we did an episode of Ruby Chibi in stop motion once, with these little figures that we had produced for a while. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the like kind of like we were saying before. It's like letting people play with your toys. It's like let's like to me personally, it doesn't take anything away from the main series to see things in another medium. I think it just adds to it. So in a lot of ways, the more the merrier, as long as it makes sense.
I gotta say, bless you. I wish all licensors were as flexible as you guys are, because that's the thing, is like, as a game dev, we always want to play with the toys and experiment as much as possible. And sometimes you have a really nice elastic brand, like this tended to be, and then other times it's a little tighter, and you have to kind of play more by the books.
Well, and I gotta say too, I mean, not to just make this a giant love fest, although I'm happy to, is I mean, a huge part of that is because y'all are who you are, and like I mentioned, you care about the brand, and you're not just trying to, there have been some brands or partners that we worked with, or more than likely, if we got to this point, ended up not working with them, where I guess, to use the analogy, we got the impression they wanted to take our toy and then go in the other room and play. But y'all were great about, we handed you our toy, and you sat down with us and we played together, you know. So I think you do have to be careful. You know, I don't want to make it sound like every company we've ever worked with we've given this much rain to, because honestly we haven't trusted every company or every partnership this much. But I feel like in general we've gotten very, very fortunate. And like I said, honestly, the ones that we didn't feel comfortable with handing over that much kind of um creative freedom to, we honestly probably just didn't end up working with them.
Yeah, I don't think there's any reason to make a game, because it takes 1 to 2 years at least
Yeah.
on something that you don't already love. And I think that's something that as we grow as a studio and we get more control over the IPs we go after, really that is like the number one thing, much more than like looking at market projections or what's hot or the tie-in or is this something tied to this. Basically, we chase after the things that are just so cool, we just can't wait to be a part of it.
It's just going to be a better product if y'all are also interested in it. And that's not to say, again, I don't have a specific one, but I guarantee there's things that y'all said, hey, what about this? And we said, no, we wouldn't really do it like that. Let's do it like this. But also guaranteed there was way more instances of, hey, we'd like to do this, and us saying, oh yeah, we had thought about that. Go for it. That'd be great. And I just think, when you find that trusted partner, it's just going to end up better. And when y'all care about the game, or any collab cares about the thing that they're working on, it's just going to end up better.
Okay, cool. I'm personally going to keep my fingers crossed for that animated anthology series.
Yeah, me too.
Next question
wait,
is from
I'll take a step back just to throw this out there, because we have a lot of conversations with our CEO, Voldy Way. If you guys ever line up one of those, WayForward will do a segment. We'll do an actual animated segment. Absolutely, 100% committing right now.
All right, I'm in.
All right,
all right, we got one. Okay, we got one in. We're good. All right, it started.
Next question is from @left4pie210, who asks, "Will Arrowfell ever go on sale on Xbox?" I guess I'm the one who has to answer that one.
I'll take this one. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Please go ahead.
I'm pretty sure it has been. I mean, the rules for sales and discounts are different across every platform. So if it hasn't been on sale for a while, there is a reason why, but we will endeavor to get it on sale again as soon as it is possible within the restrictions we have to do.
And Hoff is very good about communicating all of that. So if you don't already follow WayForward on social media, anytime we have sales starting, we'll always announce it here.
Yeah, y'all have a great active but not overbearing presence online in that regard. Like I every time I see one of those tweets, I'm interested in it. I'm like, oh, cool. And then I would assume wish listing games as well typically will also notify you, or at least keep on your radar.
Yep, that's good advice. Next one is from @TriviaTorChwick. No, Trivia Torchwick, sorry.
No,
Are any of the books going to get animated versions? Is there a possibility of such? I feel like it would be a great way for people who haven't read the books to enjoy those stories.
There's a possibility of almost anything happening ever. I think that it's not something that I can say is like actively in discussion right now. I think the main reason for that is they exist already. Like that story is there and it's in the medium that it was created in. That's not to say that it wouldn't be awesome to see that stuff animated. But again, we live in a society, et cetera, et cetera. Everything costs money. And I think we typically lean a little bit more towards, if we're going to make something new, let's make it new. So possibility and interest in, yes. I would say that's possibly more on the unlikely side, but who knows? I think there's certainly no reason why we wouldn't do it. Maybe one of these anthology ones could be a scene from it.
All right, that'd be cool too. Okay, next one is from @WhatTheFudgeBro, who says, "Do another game in Vacuo set after Volume 9 and beyond."
Okay. I mean, yeah, maybe. You know what?
Oh,
Because you asked it. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
it wasn't a question. This is a command.
It's not. Yeah, it wasn't really a question. Maybe. You know what? If it was a question, it would be out next year. But because it was a demand. No, I mean,
You have to include please.
I mean, I certainly again, there's nothing specific like that in talks right now. I will say that, from my standpoint, the areas of the world that we've seen the least, to me, feel like the areas that I would want to create new things in the most. So something like that would certainly make sense, but nothing currently on the horizon for that.
Okay. Yeah, moving more on to some additional things. They're more comments rather than questions. We have one from at Phantom OP99 who says, I love so much the small bits of characterization and animation flourishes in the game, especially Ruby and Penny. Would love to see more from both collaboration between Ruby and WayForward and Arxis in the future.
1000%.
Yep.
And if I could just say too, I mean, if you love that attention detail in Ruby Arrowfell, then please, if you haven't already, check out other WayForward games, because I don't know a game that y'all have made that you don't put that level of detail into. Y'all are great at making games, and cannot recommend them enough. So
yeah, all props to our
that.
directors, our amazing directors like Rob and James and everybody that worked on this. We have some really passionate people on our side that'll always take things as far as they can.
Yes, thank you very much. Another one from at Poorly Drawn Shoe who asks, will there be events coming up where we could play with or against Ruby on Grim Eclipse or a new Ruby game?
I don't know anything that's coming up specifically, but we could. I will mention the interest to the social team, and maybe they can get something together. If you hear me typing for a second, potentially, and it's going straight to my to-do list.
All right, there you go. Next one is from at Umber. I can't pronounce the name. Too many vowels. Umber something. Even though I am very late to watching Ruby, since I'm a first-time watcher and only halfway through Volume 6, I just want to say Ruby is really, really awesome, and I love all the characters.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And Adam, like you were saying about before, it doesn't matter when you watch it. Just happy that you're enjoying it, and appreciate the support. This is something that's I've been working on for over a decade of my life now, and is very near and dear to me. So knowing that there's still people finding it today and getting joy out of it is amazing. So thank you so much.
And then our next one is from at Alex Southgate1, who says, I have the game on Xbox, PlayStation, and on Steam, and really enjoyed the game. As a Ruby fan, it is a good game to play.
Oh, heck yeah.
Thank you very much, Alex.
We need a secret achievement that's like bought on every console. But also thank you. I get it. I've done that before for games as well, but that's extra appreciated. And Adam, I can't think of a better way to vote with your wallet than buying it multiple times.
Yeah, and I was also going to say one of those platforms that was left out, Hoff, that we'd love people to play on, that you could sort of in a way get the game for free, is on mobile from our friends at Crunchyroll right now. Do you want to tell them about that?
Yeah, it is available through Crunchyroll Game Vault. If you subscribe to their medium or top tier, you have access to a whole bunch of WayForward games, including Ruby Airfell on both iOS and Android. So yeah, that's a great way to play it, especially if you're a Crunchyroll subscriber and haven't had a chance to experience the game yet.
Yeah, I mean that's essentially girl math. It's free. You're already paying for the Crunchyroll part, so it's free.
It's free. Mm-hmm. So let's see. Next one is from another one from at YT Game News. Hey all. Hey Kerry, or as I call him, Boss Man. Thank you for so many years of Ruby, and thank you for making Ruby Arrowfell. It's a very fun game. My question is, what other Ruby game would you guys at WayForward like to do? Love you all.
I like this.
Then we got 4 hearts.
I mean, definitely. I think the core of it is really the way that the four primary characters interact. So, it was really nice to do Arafel, which is essentially kind of like an action puzzle platformer, Metroidvania style game. Like I mentioned before, it'd be great to see how they work in the brawler space, whether it's just joining River City Girls or something else in that area. Yeah, I mean, brawler would be cool. I mean, especially because Arrowfell is a side view game, so you are attacking on the y-axis. Like you can attack up and down and left and right, but with a brawler you can attack all around you in a circle. And I think that would work really well with Ruby's scythe and a lot of the different attack schemes and stuff. So I'll say a brawler. Brawler would be awesome.
I super agree. And I think talking about that co-op experience, I think that would obviously not making promises for something that doesn't exist, but I think that would fit very well in that format.
It would indeed. Okay, our next one is from at A.L. Araviaga, who just has a comment. Ever since Bianca Prisma's semblance was shown, I've wanted Team Briar to survive Volume 8, so I celebrate Kerry's optimism.
There we go. My non-answer answer that right. I promise I'll never go back on ever.
Delivering the goods.
Yeah.
Our next one is from at ShadyBoy00. Honest question.
Watch out, Shady.
They're very shady. They want to know, out of Team Juniper, who's winning in a staring contest?
Well, right off the bat, not Nora. Love her to death. She can't sit still for more than 10 seconds at a time. I think Jean's out too. Jean seems like the kind of guy that a fly would like bother him during it, and he would like keep trying to like blow it off his nose and then would blink. So definitely be between Pyrrha and Ren. I think it would be incredibly close. I think Ren would take it just barely. But Pyrrha put up a good fight.
All right. I look forward to the flashback episode about that.
Yeah. If Pyrrha, let me say this, if it's and it would be between Pyrrha and Ren. If Pyrrha wins, it's because Nora messed it up for Ren.
That sounds fair.
Yeah, that's what it would be.
Next one is from at Dan's_plan. Were James and Crow friends when they were younger?
That's a good question. I'll be honest, it's not something that I have top of mind. I don't think so. Let me you know what? Let me think about that one. Because I don't want to say the wrong thing.
All right. That's fair.
I'm sorry. Crow's not exactly like a friendly guy, so there's not a lot of that going on. So I'm gonna lean towards no. But who knows?
All right. I've got one now from oh no, my screen jumped. Where'd it go? At Murapie 1995. What were some of the inspirations for the game? And as huge fans of the Metroid genre, and Metroid being one of my favorite games, Arrowfell hit the right nostalgic spot featuring my fave series.
I can answer from the WayForward side, and then I apologize to everybody. I have to go pick up one of my kids, but I don't want to slow anything down if Kerry wants to hang around. So I'm going to, before I answer this, say thank you so much for joining us. It was so great to have you, and yeah, let's definitely collaborate again on lots of stuff in the future.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this might be a good last question, I feel like.
Okay, yeah, for me, so I actually did the pitch for the game. So once the opportunity was there, I put together the mock-up image. I put together the pitch deck, which is essentially like 10 to 20 pages of, hey, if we get to do this game, here's what it would be like. And really, it's I don't think there was a genre in mind that came from Kerry and Jeff and the folks on their end. So it was really just looking at the the brand, like how do they attack What are their styles of attacking? What are their styles of mobility? The fact that they're working together made it a no-brainer to have stuff where it's character to character driven, ability driven, add a little light layer of puzzling. So I think it really just kind of came from looking at the IP and not really over analyzing what's been done before, just taking it at face value and saying what gameplay would be most satisfying with this IP, and then also stylistically, what do we think the fans of the series would dig?
Yeah, no, I 100%. I mean, and I distinctly remember. I mean, obviously, right? Big fan of the Shantae series. That's a Metroidvania game I mentioned before. I love Hollow Knight. I am a big fan of that series. I think we didn't want to. I think we really wanted to see what y'all were interested in making first, and it just so happened to be that the thing that you pitched was kind of the thing that I think we were secretly hoping for. We would have been very open, right? But it just kind of worked out where we kind of had that like, oh, you like me, I like you kind of moment, where yeah. And then besides the obvious just like of that genre, as we got into it, as we saw your pitch and we talked about it more, it really did just feel like a good fit.
Also, you guys said no to the visual novel dating sim.
We said no for now.
I'm kidding. Yeah.
Okay. You said that was going to be the last one. I will just do one more, which is from at Yearn Zhao Login, who just says, "Hi, Kerry. Hope you're having a good day."
Oh, thank you. I've been having a great day because of this conversation, but that made me have an even better day. So thank you. This has been great. Getting to talk with y'all, talk with everybody. Just a great experience, and would happy to do it another time too.
Yeah, I apologize to everyone whose questions we weren't able to get to today, but this has been fantastic. As a reminder, Ruby Arrowfell is out now on pretty much all modern platforms, including Switch, PS4, PS5, Xbox, Steam, and on mobile devices via Crunchyroll Game Vault. So if you haven't checked it out yet, we hope you do so. Once again, please. Kerry and Adam, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today and have this extended discussion. Thank you to everyone who tuned in and listened and asked questions. Is there anything else either of you want to add before we go?
No, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope we can chat like this again in the future, maybe about new products, but also just in general. It's awesome to always chat with you.
Ditto, same, and yeah, I really appreciate y'all having me on, and I feel in my heart this will not be the last time that we all talk either like this or about new projects. So I'm looking forward to the future, and thanks for everybody for tuning in.